today we have a bit more of mocktails picking up around the world. And of course, we have a little bit of support from the Pope on stakeholder capitalism. A few more lines to come right up. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn on your Wednesday. And a warm hello to the loyal patrons, the subscribers, and the friends on Periscope. And hello, good morning to Chrysler Imperial H. Thank you so much for coming in. Good morning to you. Hope you are doing well out there. And today we just have, it sounds like Groundhog's Day. I know sometimes here on Black Spring, but I just think it's just the nature of, I don't know, dare I say, the nature of the beast without sounding too cliche. Hope you guys are doing well out there. And I will tell you about the morning's stories that we will get into. We're going to deal with sustainability, that technocracy, that's the former of technocracy that we're going to deal with. We're going to deal with a little bit more of, looks like more Marxism and more rewriting of, I don't know, I guess you can call it, of their rewriting their own laws or rewriting their crime, the way they're going to enforce law out of Seattle. And we'll also get into a bit of a few stories in which we have Israel getting a mocktail ID, the Pope supporting stakeholder capitalism or inclusive capitalism. And we'll have some developments on the projected President Joe Biden's climate czar, John Kerry. And that'll wrap us up on this Wednesday. So once again, thank you guys so much for taking the time to come in. And hello to Anarchy Television. Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate you guys. And I just want to say one more time, if you guys could feed that AI, feed the AI around here. And that's about survival, that's about survival. I mean, we're doing our own sustainability, our own technocracy around here. And you guys are part of it. So I thank you for those of you that are taking a look in, not sure if you're coming in, if you're driving by with the window down, not sure if you're coming in. I appreciate you for considering Black Spring with Autumn, because why? You have choices out there. And even if you're coming in long enough, some people, they explore channels, or they're, it's like flipping through on a tube. Sometimes you flip through long enough to realize, or either some people even subscribe even on these tubes, that they subscribe long enough to realize, but they don't want to be there. Or even if they hit the like button and then long enough to realize, oh, I'm not going to stick around here. I appreciate all of that consideration. That is a form of support. It is, it's very progressive, and I appreciate it. So thank you guys so much. And before we get into everything, of course, we will have a word of thanks for our wonderful sponsors and supporters, because you guys make things work around here. As you know by now, that many channels, whether you are a dissenting, wherever you think you are, whether you think you're a left-leaning liberal, if you're a left-leaning, you have left-leaning conservatives, whatever you want to call it. I appreciate you guys for coming in, and you guys make the difference. And this channel and this platform doesn't quite survive without you guys and your support. So however you choose to support this channel, I'm always appreciative, and I thank you guys so much for that. Thank you so much, Anarchy Television. I really appreciate it. And I caught some of your material today. I think you've got a You got more than a subscriber in me. So thank you so much, Anarchy Television. Thank you so much for being here. And Chrysler. Wow. See, Chrysler just threw caution to the wind and shared it out. I really appreciate that, Chrysler. Thank you so much. It's nice to have you here, and thank you so much for all of your support and everything you do around here to support the channel. So thank you guys so much. So, it's a little bit, the only thing I was conflicted with this morning was what I was going to start with, because there's just so many things. But I guess what I say around here all the time, which I'm not the originator of this, is that there's nothing new under the sun. We've all been pre-programmed, or I think subliminally influenced over the years. No matter what era you're coming from, it doesn't matter. So I think what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and give a word of thanks to our sponsors. I think what we're going to start with, we're going to start with a liner from Summit News, in which the Israelis get a green passport, allowing them to attend events, eat at restaurants, those pastimes, those times that are looking to be a little bit foregone. Or do we want to settle into these kinds of realities? No, we don't. But what are we doing about it? What are we doing about it? And I dare I say, what are the servants or leaders? And I cringe to call them even leaders at this time. So what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and give our word of thanks, and we'll come right back for the first line on today's Black Spring with Autumn. This show is brought to you in part by our sponsors. Whether you're interested in health, culture, politics, scripture, automobiles, entertainment, history, and much, much more, there's something for everyone. So please check out Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, The Definition of Anarchy, Joseph Francis Burton, Chrysler Imperial H, Little Miss Goth, AZ Infidel, Cold War Jesus, Anthony Scioli, and Let the Truth Be Told. We'll be right back to the news right after this. All right. Thank you guys so much again for all that you do. And thanks so much for feeding the Channelytics by either hitting that like button, or the thumbs up, or the thumbs down, or throwing that caution to the wind like Chrysler Imperial H. It makes a difference, and it's all very much support of this channel. Let's see, I have a word from Anarchy Television. You say you do have more than a subscriber over here. I thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. It was very, very more than informative, and very much, very direct. I really appreciate your approach, without a doubt. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our first story, and then we're going to have some other liners that are going to come from our friends over at the JBS. So without further ado or adon'ts, we're going to go over to the liner from Summit News. All right, what you're seeing before you is coming out of Summit News, summit.news. And this liner is written by Paul Joseph Watson. And it's vaccinated Israelis to get green passport, allowing them to attend events and eat at restaurants. Okay. All right. And according to this, it says IDF considers making the CV shot mandatory. This is actually published yesterday, but no less. Well, the 14th rather, but they're probably a little bit ahead of us as well, even in terms of hours. So according to this, Israelis who get the CV mocktail will be given, quote, green passports, end quote. That will enable them to attend venues and eat at restaurants. The country's health ministry announced that citizens who take the mocktail will be rewarded with, quote, free movement waivers, end quote, that will allow them to bypass the CV restrictions. The green passports will be issued after a person receives the second dose of the Pfizer mocktail, which Israel plans to begin rolling out on December 27th, with around 60,000 people being given the mocktail every day. According to reports, quote, holders of the passports will be able to attend public events and eat at restaurants, among other things, Health Ministry Director General Shezi Levy told Channel 12 on Sunday, end quote. Quote, they will also not be required to enter mandatory quarantine after contact with confirmed patient or after returning from a, quote, red country abroad. Those traveling will also not be required to take a mandatory CV-19 test before leaving the country, end quote. The creation of the passport opens up the question of what will happen to those who refuse to take the mocktail and whether they will ever be allowed to live a normal life again. The poll shows that 50 to 75% of Israelis have indicated they won't take the mocktail because they feel it has been rushed out, suggesting that threats of removing basic freedoms could be used to convince more people. Military officials are also considering whether to make the mocktail mandatory for the IDF soldiers. Quote, if approved, the decision will be the precedent setting, since neither the flu mocktails nor blood donations are mandated by any official military command, end quote. This is reported by Ynet News. Okay, so there you have, a little bit something around the world there. You can kind of see what's happening here. Oh, look who's here. It's been a lifetime. It is Old School Wolf Media. Old School. Nice to have you around. Hope you're doing well out there. And he says dystopian times. Roger Dodger. Old School Wolf. Nice to see you. Thanks so much for coming in. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to shuffle on over to our friends at the JBS. And I think we're going to start out with a little bit of, I think we're going to start with some technocracy coming from the Vatican. We've seen this before, but, and that's why I say sometimes, it seems like Groundhog's Day around here. But, you will always, when things come up, you'll just add it to your lot, and you'll be, you'll always have a point of reference that you can draw on. So without further ado, we'll go on to a word from our friends at the JBS, and then I'll take you over to see what the Pope has to say this time. This segment of our show is brought to you by our good friends at the John Birch Society. Less government, more responsibility, and with God's help, a better world. The JBS is a constitutional and educational organization that's been around for over 60 years, dedicated to upholding and defending the Constitution and working to preserve our freedoms and liberties in this country. The JBS does not endorse any political party or candidates. Rather, it focuses on the education, training, and development of the American voters. All right, guys, I thank you guys so much once again. And I really appreciate you guys for feeding the AI around here, especially during these times. I really appreciate it. So with that said, we're going to go on over to our friends at the JBS, the liner that we have for you today. All right, so what we have on your screen is we have a liner coming out of the TNA, that's the New American, and it is entitled Pope joins Rothschilds and megabanks for, quote, inclusive capitalism, end quote. Wow, those S's are getting me this morning. So this is written by Alex Newman. Shout out to Alex Newman. All right, so what you see before you, according to this, is Pope Francis and the Vatican are doubling down on the deep state push for globalism and technocracy, forming a highly controversial coalition for, quote, inclusive capitalism, end quote, that brings together crony mega banks, big business, the United Nations, the Rothschild banking dynasty, the Rockefeller Foundation, and other key institutions of the global elite, critics blasted and mocked the scheme. The goal, according to the alliance, is to, quote, evolve, in quote, capitalism to become more inclusive and sustainable. This includes helping to achieve the widely criticized United Nations Agenda 2030, quote, Sustainable Development Goals, that's the SDGs, that would usher in a technocratic system of global governance. We've heard that word around here. In short, the NWO agenda is getting a major boost from leaders of one of the world's major religions. The concept of, quote, inclusive capitalism, end quote, sometimes referred to as, quote, stakeholder capitalism, end quote, represents a fusion of central planning and private property, very much along the lines of fascism or technocracy, as the New American has been highlighting for many years. Under Adolf Hitler's National Socialist regime, for instance, private owners were allowed to keep their enterprises and even continue earning a profit. However, the Nazi regime told them what to do. Under a true free market system, businesses seek to earn profit for their owners by best satisfying the needs and wants of customers. This ensures fair pricing and high quality with, quote, inclusive capitalism, end quote. However, global elites and their technocratic administrators, very much including those in this new coalition, establish various other goals and objectives, including, quote, environmental, end quote, social, end quote, and so on. In short, quote, inclusive capitalism, end quote, is not actually capitalism. Okay, we're going to keep going here. According to a press release about the new scheme, the Vatican Partnership puts members of the group some of the largest and most powerful economic actors on the planet under the moral guidance, end quote, of longtime critic of capitalism, Pope Francis, and the Vatican he leads. Cardinal Turkson, who runs the prefect of the dicastery for promoting integral human development, would serve as the Pope's emissary in guiding the new alliance. Quote, an economic system that is fair, trustworthy, and capable of addressing the most profound challenges facing humanity and our planet is urgently needed, end quote, Pope Francis, the first Jesuit pope and a fervent proponent of globalism, said in a statement. By joining the alliance, members, quote, have taken up the challenge by seeking ways to make capitalism become a more inclusive instrument for integral human well-being, end quote, he added. Each year, the leaders of the organizations and firms involved will meet with the Pope to advance the Council's mission. Quote, what is needed is a fundamental renewal of hearts and minds so that the human person may always be placed at the center of social, cultural, and economic life, end quote, said Francis, without elaborating on what exactly that would entail. Known as the, quote, Council for Inclusive Capitalism with the Vatican, end quote, leaders involved in the alliance come from organizations claiming to represent more than $10.5 trillion under management, $2.1 trillion in market capitalism, 200 million workers, and offices spread across 163 countries. Some of the most powerful firms, banks, and foundations on earth are represented. In all, there are 27, quote, guardians of inclusive capitalism, end quote, so far. The list includes more than a few that have long promoted homosexuality, transgenderism, abortion, race mongering, and other sins completely at odds with Catholic teachings and biblical morality. Among them, leaders of the UN, Visa, Bank of America, Johnson & Johnson, BP, MasterCard, Salesforce, the state of California, the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, and more. It was not immediately clear whether the organizations and institutions involved would quit funding and promoting abortion, sodomy, gender confusion, and other issues now that they are, quote, under the moral guidance, end quote, of the Vatican. One thing they all agreed to do, however, was fight against the gas of life, also known as carbon dioxide, which some government-funded scientists claim causes, quote, climate change, end quote. Also at the helm of the scheme alongside Francis is Lynn Forrester de Rothschild, a member of the ultra-wealthy banking dynasty who serves as the managing partner of, quote, Inclusive Capital Partners, end quote. To get a sense of the family's influence, consider the Rothschild banking dynasty funded totalitarian George Soros early on through the Banque Privée in Geneva, Switzerland. According to historian and Rothschild apologist Niall Ferguson, the massive power goes back century. To quote, the Rothschilds had decided the outcome of the Napoleonic Wars by putting their financial weight behind Britain, end quote. He wrote in his book, The World's Banker, The History of the House of Rothschild. Imagine having the power to decide the outcome of a war between the most powerful governments on the planet. Due to their massive wealth extracted from humanity via the banking system, many critics consider the Rothschild family to be the ultimate modern-day example of, quote, money changers, end quote. As recounted in the Bible, an outraged Jesus Christ chased money changers out of the Jewish temple. Quote, this council will follow the warning from Pope Francis to listen to, quote, the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor, and answer society's demands for more equitable and sustainable model of growth, end quote. Rothschild said about the new scheme, claiming, quote, capitalism, end quote, has, quote, left too many people behind, led to degradation of our planet, and is not widely trusted in society, end quote. Among the schemes of the new Rothschild Francis Megabank CEO Union Coalition will be the pursuit not just of, quote, equality of opportunity, but equitable outcomes. The council's website explains, of course, aside from the equality under the law, which has long been established in the United States and other Western nations, free people can never be equal, and equal people can never be free. Despite being among the most unequal systems on earth, the Communist Party bosses living large while the proletariat starves, quote, equality of outcome, end quote, has long been a rallying cry of mass murdering communist dictators everywhere. Ironically, societies with the highest levels of economic freedom also rank among the most equal. They also have by far the cleanest environments and the lowest levels of poverty. Despite being among the most Okay, sorry, I'm on the wrong line there. Members of the new, quote, council pledged to support goals such as, quote, environmental sustainability and, quote, gender equality, end quote, too. While the terms sound nice when used by globalists in the UN and other institutions, quote, sustainable development, end quote, is a term used to conceal a radical agenda that seeks to undermine private property rights. Quote, gender equality, end quote, meanwhile, is a term frequently used to promote feminism, abortion, a war on the nuclear family, an assault on the value of motherhood, a blurring of gender and gender norms, and more. Of course, the Rothschild push, quote, to reform so-called capitalism is not new. In 2014, the TNA magazine exposed a Rothschild-sponsored, quote, inclusive capitalism summit in London that was aimed at peddling globalism and shredding what remained of the free enterprise system under the guise of helping mankind. The Ford Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation, which have been promoting the agenda for years, were listed as, quote, supporting organizations, end quote. Attendees and speakers included Prince Charles, then the International Monetary Fund, IMF, the Chief Christine Lagarde, former U.S. President Bill Clinton, then Bank of England boss Mark Carney, former U.S. Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, and more. Also in attendance, pension fund bosses, big business CEOs, and other top figures representing an estimated 1/3 of the world's investable wealth. One of the keynote speakers at the summit was Lagarde, at the time serving as the managing director of the IMF, an organization which for decades extracted wealth from the third world to enrich the establishment while imposing failed crony capitalist regimes on victim nations. Quoting Karl Marx, and with no trace of irony in her voice, Lagarde said, capitalism, quote, carries the seeds of its own destruction, end quote. After quoting the genocidal maniac Marx, whose poetry quoted in the book Marx and Satan reveals his fanatical hatred for God and his self-proclaimed affinity for Satan, Lagarde quoted Pope Francis as saying that, quote, inequality, end quote, is, quote, the root of social evil, end quote. In 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10, of course, the Bible says the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, which presumably would include social evils. The new Vatican push comes as the World Economic Forum, the IMF, the UN, and the British monarchy peddle what they call the, quote, Great Reset. According to the WEF boss Klaus Schwab, every country and every industry, quote, must be transformed as part of the scheme. Quote, in short, we need a, quote, Great Reset, end quote, of capitalism, end quote, said Schwab, whose organization is openly promoting the totalitarian idea that by 2030, quote, you'll own nothing, end quote. You know, we've had that video on for you. You guys are familiar with the WEF around here. So we'll wrap this one up here. This is a bit wordy, Alex Newman. All right. So what we're going to do, let me just give a shout out to people in the stream. If there's anybody here. Hello, we still have Anarchy around here. Anarchy Television. It says governments create climate change. It says the Rothschild, the Rockefellers, the Bilderberg Group, the NWO is the problem, and what is destroying the planet and our lives. Thank you so much there. So I'm going to finish this one up. We only have like just a couple more lines on that one. It is quite a bit wordy and a bit challenging in many ways. Okay. So, all right. So critics ridiculed and blasted the new scheme. Writing in Big Leagues Politics, for example, popular conservative analyst Shane Trejo said the Vatican was helping to, quote, rebrand corporate globalism, end quote. Quote, Pope Francis, who has allegedly protected known pedophiles as pontiff, is playing a key role in the destruction of the West, end quote, concluded Trejo. Speaking on Glenn Beck's show, meanwhile, the Heartlands Institute Justin Haskins lambasted, quote, stakeholder capitalism as a tool for global elites to shut down small businesses and consolidate total power. Only the most, quote, woke, end quote, crony corporation will survive, he added, saying this was simply another mechanism for a power-hungry special interest to, quote, rule the world, end quote. Leading Catholic thinkers in America have also expressed outrage. First, they infiltrated the church and the refined Catholicism. Now they're infiltrating capitalism and redefining it along globalist communist lines, end quote, explained the Remnant editor Michael Matt before calling on Catholics and Protestants in America to resist. Quote, and Francis is all in, end quote. Matt even suggested at the chair of St. Peter has been put up, quote, for sale, end quote. Numerous prominent Catholic voices have even questioned the legitimacy of Francis' papacy. In fact, as the New American Magazine senior editor William Jasper, a Catholic, pointed out in 2017, a powerful group of Catholics asked President Trump to launch an investigation into whether the Obama administration, Soros, and other forces were involved in orchestrating a coup against, quote, Pope Emeritus Benedict the 16th. The global push to finish off what remains of the free market should alarm every sensible person who values individual freedom, property rights, prosperity, opportunity, and the blessings of the free enterprise system. With governments lawlessly bankrupting small businesses while showering trillions of tax dollars on large crony corporations under the guise of CV19, there is an unprecedented urgency if Americans are going to successfully resist. The time to get involved is now. All right. Thank you so much from Alex Newman over at the TNA at the JBS. Thank you so much for that. So I thank you guys so much again for tuning in and helping us out with feeding the AI and Channelytics around here. That makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to give one more word of thanks to the sponsors, and then we'll come back and I think what we're going to do is we're going to go over to what's happening with the projected climate czar from a projected Biden-Harris administration. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be right back. This show is brought to you in part by our sponsors. Whether you're interested in health, culture, politics, scripture, automobiles, entertainment, history, and much, much more, There's something for everyone. So please check out Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, The Definition of Anarchy, Joseph Francis Burton, Chrysler Imperial H, Little Miss Goth, AZ Infidel, Cold War Jesus, Anthony Scioli, and Let the Truth Be Told. We'll be right back to the news right after this. All right, guys, thank you so much. So before we go on to that, I just want to give a summation, a little bit of a summation on that. So none of that, what we just explored or what we delved into from that liner was exactly new. And I say that because here on this platform, we have talked quite a bit about the WEF. We've talked about Air, Klaus Schwab, and his plans to, challenge everything in the 4IR, and that is the Fourth Industrial Revolution. But I'm going to say on a domestic scale, we've already seen levels of technocracy and sustainability on a corporate level and amongst capitalists here in the States. I mean, you've seen that, and what I'm calling, it's already began. There's a bit of a soft, what I'm referring to is a soft stakeholder initiatives that have even been put in place from everything from the capitalist, the NFL. We've seen it in sports. We've seen it in investment firms. We see that everyone has one of these sustainability goals or some level of technocracy. They have some type of social justice initiative. Well, this is all a part of the sustainability structure, but to me, it's just on a softer scale is the way it's been presented. So you have, of course, we've talked about it before, the UN Agenda 2030, and they mentioned it here, the SDG goals. You've seen it even in the politicians, and even in those politicians that are running, they all ran with an initiative for sustainability that falls under the same umbrella. You even had candidates that were already champions of those initiatives. Like, what was it? Deval Patrick out of Massachusetts. He was running. He had been a champion, but he was a part of Bain. He was a Bain investor, but he was also a champion of social justice. And that initiative was added to on a corporate level. And it's everywhere. So I'm saying that this is not new. Nothing's new under the sun, but you've gotten a soft stakeholder examples around the country. You've seen it in every sector is what I'm trying to connect some dots here, even if you're new. Hello, Onami Pri. Nice to see you here. Thanks so much for coming in. Thank you. And also, it's a consolidation. It's not, and we've talked about the other end of this in terms of the shareholder capitalism versus the stakeholder capitalism. Thank you so much for that, Omnipri. So yes, they're very much, they want to control things, and you're going to be under the auspices of these coalitions. It's a global, we've talked about these initiatives also before. We've talked about the sustainability in which you have the economic change, the good governance. They're wanting everybody to pledge to jump on to one universal pledge or one universal initiative, and it's going to end up being these huge coalitions are going to run the roost. Is what's going to happen. So, like I said, this is not new, nothing new under the sun here. We've talked about what the goals are and how they think they're going to get these nations or get capitalism evolved or transformed by 2030. And we've heard from the Pope before. We've had Nancy Pelosi tipping her hat to the Pope. We've had the Pope earlier this year, of course, blaming humanity for for the destruction or for blaming them for climate change, and even them associating climate change with the CV-19. We've seen this propaganda. We've seen all of this. There's nothing new under the sun here. Yeah, not on this channel. When I said under maybe this sun, and you have to come under some of these rays in order to feel that sunshine that I'm referring to. It has come from this channel that you will hear about these things. Hi, alien believers. Thanks so much for coming in. And thank you for feeding the AI. If you haven't fed the AI, you will have an opportunity. Hello, Omnipre. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. Yes, Anarchy TV. Yes, Masters of the Universe. Yeah, we've talked about Klaus Schwab, we've talked about, they know what's best for us peasants, right? I did a video last week or the week before. It was a Surf USA. And I'm not talking about the one with the U. It's SERF, Surf USA, the culture. But it was rising before. That's one thing I might echo or I might jump on behind. Yeah, okay. We've seen the things transforming all the time. We've seen the transformation in terms of which companies, who's surviving right now. The small businesses are not surviving. The guys at the top are surviving, and they're doing it based on the consumer, the demand, and they've got the drop. They've got this drop on the consumer demand based on digitization. They're totally leveling the brick and mortar businesses right now, and they know that. And I said this, we the people, we have power, but I mean, how many people are going to resist going out here and buying these big ticket items during this holiday season? You just got to go out there and buy. The consumers, it's a level of enslavement that we are as consumers. You go out here and you buy these big ticket items. You're going out here buying $500 PlayStations. Are you going to resist that to take back some of your power? Are you going to do that? I mean, it's not to say that you guys aren't, not to say that you guys don't get it, but I'm saying many people just don't get it. They don't get any of it. They don't get any level of it. Oh, look who's here. The definition of anarchy. Thank you so much for coming in. It's nice to see you here. Nice to see you. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And so we have, capitalism is definitely it's going to change. It's already changing. We're already seeing the little guys get crushed. Small restaurants getting crushed. Some of the restaurants if you go to a restaurant or if you even do the takeout, some of them are operating in such a they're just so constricted that it's almost like they're not operable. It's like you're not even your service, just some of the fundamentals of service. You're not full service. You're not even operating with that type of, you can't even trust that. It's not even a reliable, some of these restaurants that are trying to operate under some of these strict regulations. But I do believe this is just the beginning. There's going to be more regulations coming. So I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. We have just a couple more liners for you on your Wednesday. Nothing too heavy and nothing new under the sun. So just a warm hello to everybody that's in the chat. And thank you so much, Chrysler, for sharing out the stream. Chrysler Imperial H, Anarchy Television, Old School Wolf, who donned us the dystopian, give us the dystopian times. Yes, you were right on the mark. Old School Wolf, thank you so much for coming in. Appreciate you. And Omnipre, thank you so much for coming in. And we've had the definition of anarchy to join us, as well as alien believers. So I thank you guys so much for coming in. So yes, I'm just rounding out on that because I'm not exactly beating a dead horse, but you are getting updates in, I think, as close to as real time as you can. And that sometimes I can see where, that it starts to drip out. These initiatives have already dripped out in the US. The model is already dripping out. They've given you the soft model and they're priming you. You're already being primed for where we're going. You've already got You've got the thesis. They just need to, it's just going to be, developed. You're not paying attention. Everything's fine. You're crazy. That's okay too. Take what you will, take what you want. But you can't say that you haven't heard it here, is what you won't be. It's what you won't say. You will say, you might say, but I appreciate you guys so much for being here. So we're going to move on to our next liner. It's just a huge confluence of things going on, but some of the same, but they're all advantageous of one another. They're not, it's not, these are not detached measures, or, they're not, it's all working together. There's technocracy everywhere. I think we can all agree on that. So where we're going to go next is, let's have a little break from the World Economic Forum and the globalists and the technocracy just for a second. And with that, we're going to go over to, I think we're going to go over to another story from our friends, which is going to deal with the Seattle City Council. Looks like the Seattle City Council has a poverty defense. The council's considering a poverty defense to change criminal code. So, Thank you guys so much. I will be sharing the screen with you in just 1 second. Thank you guys so much for coming in and hitting the channelytics. And patrons, please feel free to drop your links in the stream. I don't say that. I don't say it, but on a covert level, just know that you have that, that latitude to do what you need to do there. All right. So what you see in front of you right now is we have another story from our friends at the JBS, and this is Seattle City Council considers, quote, poverty defense, end quote, change to the criminal code. All right. This is written by Raven Kleibo. Raven must be new to us, but I'm going to share that with you guys right now. All right. So in this liner, Seattle's left-wing city council is considering a criminal code regulation that would allow suspects to be excused for most misdemeanor crimes if they are considered to be poverty-stricken, mentally ill, or have an addiction. The so-called, quote, poverty defense, end quote, would excuse suspects of crimes such as theft, trespassing, and assault. The proposal, introduced earlier this year by Council Member Lisa Herbold, was crafted with input from local defenders, including Anita Khandelwal, the top public defender for King County, who claims the change to the criminal code would improve the system for victims and suspects. Khandelwal contends the poverty defense would not be used to provide blanket immunity from punishment. It would only be acceptable when attorneys can prove that the crime was committed by a person attempting to meet a basic need. Quote, in a situation where you took that sandwich because you were hungry and you were trying to meet your basic need of satisfying your hunger, we as a community will know that we should not punish that, end quote, she said. Quote, that conduct is excused, end quote. The UK Daily Mail reports that Khandelwal has also suggested the creation of a public fund for restitution to be used to compensate victims when the offender cannot pay them, virtually removing all personal accountability as a deterrent amongst committing misdemeanor crimes. Seattle City Attorney Pete Holmes, though open to some aspects of the proposal, believes the changes to the criminal code are unnecessary, as his office already avoids prosecuting, quote, survival, end quote, crimes, such as the one described by Khandelwal. In those instances, his office will send people to diversion programs to connect them to resources they need to avoid criminal conviction. Quote, good prosecutors don't take any satisfaction in prosecuting that type of offense, end quote, he said. Predictably, Khandelwal defended the proposal by citing racial disparities, implying that minorities have a monopoly on poverty, addiction, and mental illness. Quote, this is not that we don't care about the business community or about people who have experienced harm, end quote, she continued. Quote, it is that we know that this processing of human beings through the system is harmful to our clients and, again, very racially disproportionate, and also not getting business owners what they need either, end quote. But despite Khandelwal's assertions, it's more likely to change to the criminal code change to the criminal code would be used to justify the cuts to the police budget, even as the city's homicide rates are at their highest level in more than a decade. And the city has witnessed a spike in violent crime with 8,418 burglary incidents compared to 7,634 last year, according to the National Review. The city's homeless population has also increased by 5% since last year, Fox affiliate WSFX TV reports. And yet, the city's budget includes an 18% cut to the Seattle Police Department, prompted by calls from police reform activists demanding the police budget be reduced by half. Quote, we have rightly put forward a plan to seek to ensure SPD has enough officers to meet 911 response and investigative needs throughout the city, while acknowledging and addressing the disproportionate impacts policing has had on communities of color, particularly Black communities, end quote. Major Jenny Durkin said in a statement earlier this month. Former city council Tim Burgess is an outspoken critic against the proposal. Burgess told KUOW the proposal was a, quote, defense lawyer's dream, end quote. Quote, it sends this powerful signal that as a city government, we don't really care about the type of criminal behavior in our city, end quote, Burgess opined. Holmes voices similar concerns and believes the policy would actually harm the individuals committing the crimes because it would ultimately prevent them from being connected to the resources they need to avoid a conviction. Quote, I think it's running the risk that we excuse these crimes. We don't couple it with the resources that are needed to make sure the behavior is addressed. And then the community is left frustrated, end quote, he said. At KTTH, radio host Jason Rantz contends the proposal would actually worsen the city's crime problems by ignoring the root problems of the city's criminal justice system. Rantz told Fox News, quote, we have this culture of lawlessness. We have a prolific offender problem where pretty much the same 100 or so individuals keep breaking the law, not seeing any punishment, and then doing the same thing over and over and over again. And so all you're doing is making it easier for those people to continue that behavior, end quote. Rantz also questioned how the criminal code would be applied to someone from outside of Seattle who comes into the city and commits misdemeanors. Quote, does that mean someone can come from outside the region who is destitute, who is low income, and break a whole bunch of laws, knowing that if you do it in Seattle, you're not going to get into trouble, end quote. He posted it. Hairball said the Public Safety Committee will continue to work on the proposal in 2021 with further talks on the policy set for January. The proposed legislation has not yet been written, KUOW reports, but if the proposal were to pass, Seattle would be the quote, first metropolitan area to alter its criminal code in such a way, end quote, the National Review observes. Well, isn't that quite the story? Considering where it's coming out of Seattle, I mean, you guys remember less than 10 months ago, the Chaz, the Chop Zone at Carmen Best. I mean, the hits just keep on coming out of there. I'm not sure, who knows where they're going to wind up, but I think many people are packing their bags and they're leaving. They've left Seattle, like many states, in mass exodus because of this type of what do you want to call it? SJW, neo-Marxist kind of what they're injecting into their communities. So let's see. I have some people here right now. Thank you guys so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm going to share some of the comments here. All right. Anarchy Television says victimless crimes still a crime, but actual crimes is not crime any longer. We are living in the twilight zone. Roger Dodger. Clearly. R. Jones, hello. Thank you so much for coming in. She says 1001 considerations are made for, quote, poverty, end quote, yet very, very rarely is the main cause of U.S. poverty ever addressed or even spoken out loud. Single parent families. Thank you guys so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. And you guys are the best in chat on the tubes. And one more comment from R. Jones. She says, maybe all of our criminals will move to Seattle. At least we would know where they are. Hey, that's a good point. Yeah, there's just there's so many things going on. There's so much there's so many issues happening amongst the states right now. There's the division that we have right now. It's really disturbing what's going on. Just it's quite disturbing what's happening. So yeah, so as you can even tell from the thumbnail today, you have your these three parts of these agendas are what's being installed into just about every aspect of life or human interest, whether you want to talk, whether it's economy, governance, sustainability, whatever, these SJW initiatives. It's all transformation. It's a transformation, dripping these transformative initiatives and pieces out. So, and I do have some family in Seattle, but I don't know. Surviving Seattle. No longer sleepless in Seattle. The definition says these people are victimizing folks, but if we defend ourselves from them with firearms, we'd be jailed. It makes no sense. I hear you, the definition. I hear you. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating, the definition. It's more than frustrating. What do we do? All right, so we're going to go back into what I'm calling the sustainability or former, we're going to go back into the technocracy, the former technocracy on this next story. And that's going to involve what's happening with this projected Biden Harris administration. They're, as they say, they're making moves already that show you where we're going. So we're going to go right on over to that. That's going to come out of that's actually going to come out of our friends at the Zero Hedge. All right. So John Kerry's tough climate diplomacy with China to likely be a mere exercise in political point scoring. So if you guys don't know, if you haven't been around for a while, the Biden Harris projected administration nominee, they've already chosen Kerry to be the climate czar. Okay. And I think they've moved the climate agenda to probably number one. You're going to be, subjected to that. But it's interesting to see what's already happening, because Kerry actually spoke a couple of weeks ago at the WE Forum. And of course, you had the New World Economic, you had a New World Economic Forum under Michael Bloomberg. So you've had a ton of forums and a ton of mayors meeting on these agendas that are being rolled out. So I'll go ahead and let's just keep going here. All right. So according to this is by Tyler Durden, and I think Tyler Durden actually writes for Zero Hedge, and I think he writes quite a bit, but he's got his own platform going pretty strongly. But here, the incoming Biden administration, this is his frame, not mine. The incoming Biden administration will be the first ever to allow a climate envoy to serve on the National Security Council. The man tapped for the job, John Kerry, has been hailed as, quote, a longtime climate champion, end quote, with vast foreign policy experience to boot, given he was formerly Obama's Secretary of State. Though it remains hotly contested and disputed the extent to which climate change is a matter of national security, the two things will now be bound up. Even more so, given the U.S. and China are widely considered as the world's two top polluters, giving Sino-U.S. relations are at an all-time low within the last weeks of the Trump presidency. All right. A lengthy essay in the South China Morning Post explores the prospects of Biden getting, quote, tough on China in the sea of combating climate change with Kerry running point. Quote, the prospect of a return to a joint effort by the world's top two polluters to combat the climate crisis has set off alarm bells among some political circles in the US amid a hardening of attitudes toward Beijing, end quote. SCMP Beijing Bureau Chief Jane Kai, along with co-author Owen Churchill, write. Okay, so we're going to keep going here. Specifically, they cite the foremost example of Republican congressional hawk Tom Cotton, who fears steep reversals of Trump's pressure campaign on Beijing in the name of, quote, smooth relations, end quote, based on nebulous, quote, commitments, end quote, on climate change. Weeks ago, Cotton said on Twitter that Biden is surrounding himself with, quote, panda huggers, end quote, who will ultimately be, quote, soft, end quote, on China, before adding, quote, John Kerry will jet off to Beijing in pursuit of a climate accord with the world's biggest polluter, the Chinese Communist Party. If Xi Jinping plays along, he'll demand concessions. And we know what that means: more shuttered factories in the US and more hot air from Beijing. I can give you a nice little imagery here. And it appears Kerry is sensitive to such past criticism as SCMP recalls. But Kerry has struck sterner notes too, expressing confidence in a September interview with The Guardian that Biden would not quite lavish praise on dictators, end quote, and insisting that any cooperation on climate with China could coexist with actions to address other, quote, serious problems in the relationship, end quote. Kai and Churchill underscore that, quote, at least, quote, at early test for Kerry will be how he will both seek cooperation with Beijing and carry out the Biden team's plan to rally a united front of countries to hold China accountable to strict environmental standards in its Belt and Road Initiative, BRI projects, end quote. However, will the new climate envoy position under Biden and on the NSC different from the much more symbolic and still existent climate czar become a mere exercise in political point scoring? They write further, according to the Biden plan, any future carbon mitigation agreement signed with Beijing will be, quote, contingent on China eliminating unjustified export subsidies for coal, end quote, and making, quote, verifiable progress in reducing the carbon footprint, end quote, of BRI related projects. But amid a continuing downturn in the U.S., public's views toward Beijing, experts examining the Biden administration's global climate plan said pressure on China should not be deployed simply for the sake of political point scoring. But China remains very heavily invested in its overseas fossil fuel plants, particularly coal-fired plants. Indeed, similar to Washington officials selectively calling on our human rights abuses against regimes they don't like, the issue of big polluters is increasingly being used in a similar way. That is, for mere leverage in the geopolitical arena. So you might keep. I think, of course, that's going to be a developing situation, depending on how this whole thing works out with the election here. With this contested election, we'll see what happens here. But they're pretty much, they're mounting up for moving this whole thing forward, along with all the other geopolitical plans that are in place. But is anybody surprised? I'm not. Okay. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing that one just a second. All right, so we've got Anarchy Television, who says abolish all gun laws and gun restrictions. Oh, it's an infringement on the Second Amendment anyway. Time for people to take personal responsibility. Let's see. Nice. You said Tyler Durden is actually an AI system posing as a human. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised. I like the way you think. It's everywhere, right? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't be surprised. Who's writing the articles? I mean, who knows? All right, so I'm going to read this liner here. It says, this is from Anarchy Television. He says, AI systems are all over the internet, including social media, posing as humans. You might think you're actually communicating with a human when actually it's an AI. Wow. Anarchy Television, you are you're picking up points around here. You're picking up points. I really appreciate it. That's a very interesting perspective on what we're seeing around here. You're right. I mean, and they've probably, and I'm sure you know, they've been charting emotions and charting interest and everything. So they're probably tapping in everywhere. All right. So what we're going to do is one more word of thanks to our sponsors, and I'll be right back to, I don't know, maybe we'll wrap us up just really shortly here. I think I'll open it up for like 10 minutes and then we'll close out. And I thank you guys so much for tuning in today on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And we'll be right back. This show is brought to you in part by our sponsors. Whether you're interested in health, culture, politics, scripture, automobiles, entertainment, history, and much, much more, there's something for everyone. So please check out Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, The Definition of Anarchy, Joseph Francis Burton, Chrysler Imperial H, Little Miss Goth, AZ Infidel, Cold War Jesus, Anthony Scioli, and Let the Truth Be Told. We'll be right back to the news right after this. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I'm going to plug this here. The definition says Tyler Durden is the character from Fight Club. He was imagined by the protagonist. Yeah, you guys are a lot of are very stimulating here in the chat. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And R. Jones says that AI can impersonate any human, including voice, including a person who has passed on. Wow. They could kill you and make your family believe you are alive. So dangerous. So dangerous. And R. Jones says there's no limit whatsoever. So I'm just going to drop this link here just for five minutes here. See if I have any takers. And I'll get you guys going on your Wednesday. So yes. So of course we did more Technocracy. But like I said, we do these things. We do these segments regularly here on Black Spring. We've and you can see who the players are whether it's a politician, whether it's a speaker, it doesn't matter. They're all part of the coalition, and they just drip little parts of the agenda out as they are developing them. So there you are. And R. Jones says, check out Deepfake. It will blow your mind on what AI is capable of. I will do. Thank you so much for sharing that, R. Jones. Really appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys so much for coming in. Crazy times. And let's see. Shout out to the Lockhart Perspective if you're listening out there. Because Lockhart Perspective and I have watched a movie called Utopia, and we've expounded on that quite a bit on her platform. So if you want to, have it, we've had a review of that. We've done some reviews on some films, and actually there's going to be one, I think another one coming up, at least two more that kind of gives you some insight on what's going on, or gives you a perspective at least on on the things that we're dealing with. And I don't know, what can I say? It's pre-programming. It's always been around. It's not new. That is not new. The pre-programming is not. And also what I'm going to also, there's going to be something new that I'm going to add to the platform. You're going to also be able to check out some of these check out some of the episodes, if you will, on via podcast platforms coming up. So I'll have that information to come out to you pretty soon. And also I will do a few more premieres, and that way I will be, we can do some other kinds of engagements, on some more engagements with that. I thank you guys so much for tuning in. So it looks like I don't have any takers today, which is totally fine. You guys have been fantastic as always in the chat. All right, guys. So I'm just going to give thanks to everybody in the stream, and then we're going to close out. Also, on the community tab, I think I will probably put up a poll to see, as we go forward and as we kind of change some things on the platform. I'll put some engagement over there, and it's really helpful when you guys respond to that. And thank you guys so much for taking care with the Channelytics today. Because yes, if you hit the like button, that totally helps a lot. Okay, so thank you so much. So I want to wish you guys a great day and say hello, and thank you so much for coming in to Chrysler Imperial H, and thank you so much for sharing out the stream, and Archie Television. Thank you so much for coming in. And Old School Wolf Media, it's been a lifetime. Thank you so much for coming in. Appreciate it. And Omnipre George Kitchen, thank you so much for coming in. And who else do we have? Definition of Anarchy. Appreciate you so much and all that you do. Thank you so much for your support. And one other thing. R. Jones, thank you so much for coming in. Anarchy Television, a new friend here. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming in. And Let the Truth Be Told. Thank you so much for coming in. It's nice to see you here. Let's see. Oh my gosh, no way. Are you kidding me?
No idea where that icon came from.
Where is that icon from?
No clue. That was not me. I can fix that.
Oh, how fun. It's a little different, a little different for Old School Wolf, but we'll take it. We'll take some, I guess, some holiday cheer around here. We don't have any lights, stringing around, or we don't have any of that right now. So how's it going? It's been a lifetime. It's, we're kind of craving some prepper series, and it's a different kind of prepper series that I'm craving around here. How's it going?
Going fine. I've just been focusing on work a lot. Just had to come to a conclusion there. I couldn't focus on YouTube and professional life at the same time, so
Yes.
I had to focus on what was making the money for me.
Well, I hear you. I know that's it's a lot. It's a lot, and there's a lot going on. It's a lot going on.
Yeah, it's this whole Rona thing has screwed everyone over. I think you mentioned you wanted some more prepper series. The purpose of my prepper series was to give people the basics to understand, basic concepts for them to understand how to get themselves ready. Like if you go to a prepper channel, they have thousands of hours of content. Nobody's interested in that. I mean, it may be cool to just watch a video here and there, but what they're doing is incredibly intricate. Most people are not that skilled. That's a high skill level stuff. So what I was presenting was for people to understand on a conceptual level. And yesterday, I just improved my prepper kit a little.
Really?
Yeah, I was going to pick up a pizza. I had to wait for the pizza, so me and my daughter went over to the gun store that was right next to the pizza place. They happened to be open, which I was surprised. I looked on the wall. They had a used Rossi matched pair, uh, 22 long rifle barrel with a 20 gauge barrel, and it's a short gun. It's
Okay.
tiny, but and you can switch out the barrels. Got
Nice.
that for like 170. Now the advantage there, I mean, it's always good to have an extra 22 laying around, I guess. But my main concern there was I didn't have a 20 gauge already. So now I have something that'll shoot 20 gauge. It's only single shot, but a single shot is better than zero shots whatsoever. I can now diversify uh, my kit a little with a very small purchase. I've diversified what I can do in like long term survival.
Wow. That's nice. That's really nice. It's so funny you mentioned you're talking about because I was thinking that the bug out bag. I bought something the other day. I bought a radio. It's the hand crank one, but I think it has about four other functions on it.
Good,
Um, it's got I'll tell you what that's about. I'll tell you the inspiration for that.
good. I have one. Everyone should have one. That's a really good thing to add to your little prepper kit.
And it's not very big. I want to say maybe it's like 8 inches length. Maybe it's not very big. It's pretty compact. So I figure it would. I mean, I think maybe that's ideal for a kit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's not. Yeah, but it's got. I think it's got solar. I think it can be powered. It can be battery. Like I guess what is it? Li ion powered or can be solar powered. It even has a flashlight on it. It's about four different ways of getting power sources, I guess. Three, at least three on it. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was good, and I'm like, I need to get it together. Just start putting everything together because I have these pieces, but they're just kind of like scattered. Oh, I think this is here. Oh, I think I have this here. But I'm motivated by a very specific kind of prep that I this is the reason that I got it. But
What are you trying
yeah,
to prep for?
I'll tell you more about that. EMP, an EMP is uh, what motivation is, and yeah, more of a power grid situation. Um, I don't think that that's impossible. Not here. I don't. Um, yeah. So
Well, that's intriguing. Why are you worried about an EMP?
Well, I'll tell you about it. I'll tell you about it. I mean, yeah, I'll show it to you. I'll share it with you guys for sure. Um, yeah, but just things are just, I think there's some things going on, and I don't know. It's just for my own comfort, I guess, is why I'm doing it.
That's fine. So one of the key tenets of prepping is versatility.
Hmm.
So the people that are prepping for a very very specific um, scenario are people that they have to count on that one scenario coming true, or a lot of their preps are useless.
Yeah, well, I figure well, I mean, I was thinking, well, I didn't have a radio at all. I figured that's pretty versatile.
Yes.
I had no radio, not small, not hand, no radio whatsoever. I didn't have one. And I was trying to remember, I think maybe you showed the radio, or you gave very specific, you gave some ideas in one of your series. And I'm like, well, maybe I need to watch some of those series again so I can see what I have and, and compare, what I was considering getting to some of those things. So yeah, but so you're pretty busy with your new endeavor.
Well, yeah, work is taking off. I think a lot of things have set up like in my advantage. The thing that throws a monkey wrench into everything is, of course, the our reaction to the Rona,
Okay.
and we'll see how everything else plays out, I guess. Pretend, act like everything's normal until everything's are not normal. That's when you rely on your prepping skills.
Yeah.
Well, like you rely on your preps.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was just funny. I was just thinking about some of the things that I bought for your for the $27 challenge. I'm like, yeah, I seriously need to redo that again and do it with what I learned in mind. Because some of those things that I bought, I think are already like the mistakes that I made are already, perished. I need to get rid of some of those things. I'm like, yeah, Autumn, don't buy any more Jello. don't, don't buy any more
Yep.
Jello, and don't buy any more top ramen is not going to be it. Not the thing to do. I had tons of that, and I need to get rid of that stuff. I can't put that in the kit.
No, well, that was the $27 challenge was all about a conceptual base understanding of what you're trying to do, because that's what most people are lacking. So top ramen, like, it's not a bad thing to have as a prep, but to have like a 72-hour bag or a
Mhm.
bug out bag, you can't have that in there,
No, no,
because that's especially in your area, California, IA. If you get hit with a bad friggin' earthquake, do you really want to hang around? No, there's no services, no
no.
no way to get medical help. Like, if you get hit with a bad one, you can't drive. There's no place to go. You need to have a bag you can put on your back and just start walking, walking east. That's really what that comes down to. So you need to have, if you can walk for 3 days and have everything you need to get out of there, then you're going to be in a really good situation. Everybody else, they're going to have to hang out and try to find some canned food that wasn't destroyed, or find some clean water that they can drink. No, you already have that stuff available to you. You can just leave. Screw everything else.
Right, right, right. So yeah, so that's yeah, I wanted to get some just kind of clean up the bag, um, revamp the bag, and get rid of the other stuff is just trash. I mean, I don't even know. I think I did what what most people would do. They would go in, and which I have tons of cans of sardines. I I have lots of cans of sardines is what I have. And I
It's
and I
okay.
and I love sardines. I do. I mean, I like sardines for everyday kinds of things, but then I have an extra stash of those, and I think they fit easily, and I think they have their shelf life is pretty good.
Yeah, well,
Um,
that's still that's good to have as a prep. You have your salts, you have a lot of fats in there, you have proteins. It'll keep you going. It's not inherently toxic, so that's not a bad thing to have on hand.
yes, and of course, I don't know. I guess maybe if the lid is sharp enough, I can use that.
Yeah, you can use that as a tool. The main reason why I tell everyone to pack away spam is because spam is, even though technically it's all dead, it's still complete proteins. It's something that'll just help sustain you. It lasts a
Yeah,
long time.
yeah. So I mean, it's yeah. I just need to get. I think I still need to get a bag, and I did remember specifically. You said, well, don't buy one of those expensive bags. Just get something that's durable. I guess just a durable bag to put everything
Yeah,
in.
yeah, because it doesn't matter what bag you have when friggin' the meteor hits. You know, as long as it can carry what you need, then you're doing fine. So there's a lot of name brand designer bags out there, things that are super cool. Now you can just dump it all in a duffel bag. As long as it is there, you're doing good. The
Well, yes. Well,
preps have to be cheap by nature because you're not making money off of it in the short term.
no, no. So yeah, I will keep. I will just work on that, and yeah, just keep adding things like replacing the goofy things with the real stuff. So at least I have a real concept of what that is, thanks to your $27 challenge.
No problem. Just trying to make the world a better place. And I'd like to respond to Mr. Snappyzilla there.
Oh
I
wow,
really do in some way. I really do in some ways kind of take for granted that I know how to live in the woods, pitch a tent, build a fire, hunt for food, find water. But those are the basics that everyone should know. Yeah, that's true. I agree with you. Those are some basics there. Even if you don't know how to skin a squirrel, I think people would figure it out fast enough when they get hungry. Skills
yeah,
are more important than prep stuff. You know what? Skills are more important. That's why I keep saying that it's conceptual. So I see some people will brag about how they have 10 years worth of canned food saved up. And I'm just thinking that's a horrible waste of space. Imagine 10 years of food, and that's like a warehouse. But you're gonna die in 2 years if you try living off of canned food. It's all freaking there's zero nutrition in it. It's got toxins and it's full of sugar. You're gonna fall apart in 2 years.
yeah.
Skills and understanding of what you're doing.
Well, I think yeah, I think well, I definitely learned that about the because I think yeah, that was one of my issues with the Jello and the Jello and the ramen. That wasn't because I bought I bought tons of I bought a few stacks of those things and it's just a waste of space and now they're who would hold on to that stuff and it has no value. There's no value in those. There's empty calories or empty carbs, I guess you could call
Well,
those too.
remember, value is based off of what people are willing to pay or trade for it. Ramen isn't the worst thing. I actually have a whole bin full of ramen noodles. Okay, the advantage with ramen, there's two advantages with ramen that people hype up too much. One, it's cheap as dirt. It's freaking 25 cents for a pack, and it lasts forever. It lasts forever because there's no nutrition in it. But when somebody has done zero prepping, they have no food. What are they going to trade for a 25-cent pack of ramen? The answer is a lot of stuff. Hunger is a very powerful thing. So imagine what, if you got a family of four, imagine what a man will trade for 2 packs of ramen and a can of spam.
Yeah,
So ramen is very
I
good
don't
for
not,
short-term survival. Mm-hmm. What's that?
well, I just don't I don't I mean, I see that's another to me like that's another part of the, the challenge or what I've learned or what I'm learning about, you know, the types of items that you have and, and trading, what you can trade and what, something that may not mean much to me or because I would be travel. Maybe I would have more. Maybe I'd be flexible or whatnot, or more flexible than somebody else could be, depending on what they were trying to trade. Or yeah, so yeah, it's a learning curve
See,
even still.
the ramen noodle, that's not something you're going to have in your it's not going to have you're not going to have that in your bug out bag. You're going to have that as part of the bug in plan.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's more for like an economic problem, or even if you're extremely stuck in California, earthquake hits, you can't get out of there. People are going to be very thankful to have ramen noodles to survive for a few days until um, resources come in.
yeah. Well, I think I could probably trade sardines for many things in the book out bag. Um, yeah. So yeah, I need to. But I was thinking, I would get some kind of a knife. I don't even have like razor blade anywhere. I don't buy anything like that. I don't think I got anything like that. No.
No knives. It's a good tool to have on hand.
Yeah, not even a pocket knife. I don't think I have. No.
I agree with you, Snappyzilla. Coffee and sugar are really good trade items. So
No,
part of
this
what we
this
have.
this is Anarchy Television. He's new.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got a new Anarchy.
Oh, okay,
He
okay.
was here
Freaking,
earlier. He was here. The definition was here earlier, so he might still be around. But this is
they must be brothers. Or
that.
okay, that's right. Anarchy TV. So I actually do have. I went to the Dollar Tree and I bought a bunch of bottles of what do you call it? Instant coffee. The thing about going get it in from the Dollar Tree is you get it in small packs. It makes it more tradable because you don't want to like open a big one and just kind of like spoon it out. I think people are going to want their own little pack that other people's fingers haven't been in.
Yeah.
So that was my idea behind that. But you can also go to like closeout stores. Like I want to go to like the closeout store here. They have a bunch of Starbucks coffee in vacuum sealed packs. So I can get that, and I have my other prepping materials. I can put that in a bucket with a Mylar bag, drop in a and drop in another because those bags are not meant to last forever. But if I can put that in my own prepping materials, I can make it last a lot longer. Now I have a bunch of little bags of friggin' freeze dried coffee, fancy freeze dried, not freeze dried, friggin' vacuum sealed coffee. That'll make it last a lot longer. And sugar lasts forever. That's how it's designed to be.
Yeah, well, I think you can even I think at the dollar store you can probably find those too, right? The individual ones, in the little Splenda packs or something like that. I haven't been in a while. Um, yeah, I think the packs are probably the best way to go.
Hmm. I haven't really tried saving up any a lot of sweet items aside from like barbecue sauce. There's gonna be a lot of bland food in the freaking in a economic depression where everyone's searching for food. So you need some barbecue sauce.
Yeah, barbecue sauce goes well with, with a lot of stuff. At least I think so.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Especially, vinegar
it
based.
just excites your senses.
All right. So what I'm going to do is, guys, I am going to wrap this segment up. And old school Wolf, I'm so glad that you came around. We notice when you're not around.
Thank you. I'm always happy to be here.
Yeah, so I'm going to wrap this up, and I will see you guys on the next live stream in the comment section, Moonlight stream, or in a video. So, and thank you guys so much for feeding our AI today. And I'll see you guys next time. Have a great Wednesday. Bye.
Bye, everyone.